This horse is a good example of an overweight horse. We begin up here on the crest of the neck, and look, this horse has about 4 inches of fat pad compared to the other horse. This one is going to be at probably a 6, or a 7. I would go even higher because this is quite a fat pad. Look at the withers, pretty rounded over the withers. This is going to be a 6 on the withers, okay? Then we come back here to the loin, and you can see there is a groove running all the way down this horse's back, from the withers all the way to the tail head. And I've joked about it with clients for years that, oh, you could put a dozen eggs on the back of this horse and he wouldn't roll off. And that's because that groove. And what that's telling me is we have fat pads coming up over that spinous process, and that spinous process is deep in that groove. So this horse is putting on a lot of fat. We get back here to the tail head, and you see how it's a groove here. It's not flat and it's not prominent. This horse has a lot of fat pads. I would say this is at a definite 7, even an 8 on the fat pads here. Come back up here behind the shoulder and look at this fat pad on this horse. This is a big fat pad here. He's putting a lot of weight right through here. And I would say there again, this is at a 7. And going back through here, I cannot feel those ribs with gentle pressure. There's one. That was about all. I still can't feel this horse's ribs. And this is telling me there's a lot of fat being deposited here. This horse is between a 7 and an 8. Horses that are overweight are going to have a lot more problems with their joints, down on their legs and down on their feet. And we're trying hard to manage this horse to get more weight off of her so that we're able to increase her productivity, make her feel better, and also to have her be able to not have some of the problems. Let's move over to this side and talk about some of the problems that we'll see with an overweight horse. Horses have problems, just like other people with metabolic issues. They can have insulin resistance. They can have what we call Cushing's disease, which is problems with their adrenal glands and producing too much adrenal or not enough adrenal glands. And that's what really happens with these overweight horses. When they get to be overweight, they're a lot more susceptible to a disease in their feet called laminitis. And that's where they can get an inflammation in the connection between the hoof wall and the bone. And when that connection gets damaged, they begin to separate and you get problems in the feet. It can be extremely painful, and it can cause some severe detrimental effects. Other problems that we see with overweight horses. Number one, you may be overfeeding this horse. Horses will eat between 1.5% to 3% of their body weight every day in dry matter. So this horse would probably weigh about 1,300 pounds. That's a pretty big horse. So you would be expecting, anywhere between 13 to 15 pounds, all the way up to 30 pounds on this horse. That's just a rough estimate. I haven't got my calculator out to determine that. But that's on an average. So you wouldn't want to be feeding this horse 40 pounds. You wouldn't want to be feeding this horse 45 pounds. Not only does it cause her to be overweight, but it also causes, it's a waste of your resources, a waste of your money, when really it would be more healthy for her to be eating less and also saving money for the horse owner. Other things that we have to worry about are joint issues. We look at the high impact joints, we look at their carpus, we look at their fetlock and their pastern. All of those will begin to develop arthritis on a much earlier basis if they're overweight. We're just working those joints way too much. I would like to see this horse come down in body condition score by about 2, from a 7 to a 5. That means this horse needs to lose, approximately 100 pounds. The way we would go about that, yes, we evaluate how many calories a day she's eating, and we can bring that down just a little bit. We can also increase her workload. And that's the problem with this horse. She's already working hard, and we're already trying to manage her diet and keep her calories down, but she's still keeping the weight on. And so we know that there's going to be an individual basis. But that's what we're trying to do, is to manage her weight so that she is not going to have a less productive. We want her happy. We want her to be able to do her job well and do it for as many years as she wants to do that. And so we want to be able to manage that. So those are just a few thoughts on our equine weight, or managing their weight. We don't want them to get overweight. We don't want them to be too heavy, primarily for their health. Another part of losing weight is you have to exercise. And we know that as people, but horses are the same way. They need to be able to get out of the corral, and they need to be able to move. And with that being said, how much exercise is appropriate? Well, it depends on the level of exercise. If they're out galloping through the fields, then it doesn't take a whole lot. But if they're just walking every day, and that's mostly what this horse does. She goes out in the arenas and she's walking around carrying kids around for riding lessons. Does a very good job with it, and they love her. But she could have an increase in workload. And what I mean by that, maybe a little more intensive. Instead of at a walk, she would need to be at a trot for 30 minutes a day. And there's a lot of ways to do that. You can either ride them, you can put them on a hot walker, you can lunge them in a circle. Those kind of things are all what's going to increase their exercise. And what we're trying to do is increase the amount of calories they're consuming in a day in their body. They're increasing the amount of calories they're utilizing in their body. So just like with people, one, we want to decrease the amount of feed that they're eating, the amount of calories that they're eating, and two, we want to make sure that they increase their exercise or the expenditure of those calories. One thing I do want to note that I think is very important with horses, they are meant to be out in a pasture grazing all day long. That's how their digestive tract is taken care of, and we don't want to withhold feed from them for an extended period of time. And so for this horse, it would be ideal to still feed her 3 times a day or more. Just the higher the amount of times we can do it, but we feed small amounts. And that would allow that digestive system to function in the proper way, but it wouldn't allow her to take in the excess calories. The other thing we can do is we can get a hay that has a less dense in calories. And there is a difference in the quality of hays, and you can test your hay. This horse needs to be on a quality hay that is very low quality because she does not need the extra calories. Needs to be put up proper and with no mold and stuff like that, but it can be a grass hay that doesn't have a lot of excess calories. That'll allow her to eat throughout the day, but then it will not give her the extra calories. Okay, there's a few other things that we can do to change how they're eating. And there are different things, the different types of feeders, different management issues, so feeding multiple times a day with smaller amounts or less quality of hay. But if your horse is out in a group setting such as these two, and they have free choice to hay all day long, then what you can do is put a net around the hay. And what it does is it causes them to have to work harder to get at the hay. They still can go out in the corral and get the hay that they want, but they have to work around the net. They have to work through the small holes that they have, and it just limits the amount of hay that they can eat at a time. But there are a lot of really good devices that are now being incorporated. I know that in Europe, a lot of them are using computerized feed bins. So the horse comes in and it gives them a small amount. Goes out, comes back a little while later and does that. I haven't seen many of those in the United States, but there are a lot of really good things that they're starting to do that help limit the horse on what they're able to eat.